Hello, everyone, and welcome to Call Your Hits, a Storm Riders Airsoft podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Today, we've got an awesome episode lined up for you all. It's all about the American Milsim event, Copperhead 7, which was held last weekend, so September 3rd and 4th, 2022, at the Playas Training Center in Playas, New Mexico. Now, obviously, I did not travel to Copperhead 7 myself, but we had a few of our Discord members in attendance, and I'm so glad to be able to bring them into the chat with us today to talk about their experience. So I've got Chaz, our Discord moderator, along with Sam, who was on the podcast sometime last year, if I remember correctly. And last, but certainly not least, we've got Nick, who is not only a new guest for us on the podcast, but also new to American Milsim events. And Copperhead 7 was his first one. So welcome, guys. I'm so pleased to have you here today with us.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so I want to dive right in. And Nick, I kind of want to start with you. You know, it's your first AMS event. Now, I know it's not your first Milsim, but looking at this as your first American Milsim, what was the lead up like for you? Like, how did you go about preparing for that? And what were you looking forward to?
Well, like any other event, kind of have a list of things I go through, a checklist for getting all the stuff together, going over the rule set 10, 20 times, making sure I have everything and that everything's to spec. And then also a lot of watching videos of the previous years and just trying to figure out what to expect. And then coordinating with 4 or 5 other of my teammates and just on the logistics side of things. But a lot of the videos were really exciting just to kind of see what that whole Copperhead event was like, because I've heard that it's kind of the crown jewel of the AMS events now, as before it was other events. But I was just looking at the facility and then just trying to get a gauge on anything that I could.
Yeah, right on. And is there anything in particular that when you were doing your research, you were like, I can't wait to see this, or I can't wait to experience that?
I hadn't been to an event before that had vehicles, so that was definitely a big part of it, is just seeing a lot of the vehicle play. All the vehicles were constrained to the road, so it wasn't like just Mad Max going through all in between houses and off-road, but that was definitely going to be an exciting part. Also, since my team's Grenadier, so I was definitely looking forward to trying to merc some vehicles the weekend. Unfortunately, I did not, but that was definitely something I was looking forward to.
Awesome. And just for my own knowledge, are the vehicles player driven, or do they have staff people who drive the vehicles?
So all the vehicles at American Milsim events are player owned vehicles, or POVs. And they have a strict set of rules and criteria for who can be a driver of the vehicle, all the insurance and liability, and you have to obviously bring the vehicle yourself. So there's a whole set on their rule set about who can drive it and all the rules that you must follow. But it's pretty interesting seeing what people bring. We were camping next to some cost guys that brought a tricked out Toyota Tacoma that was all green. And then there was some UFS guys that they had I think it was like a stripped down Land Rover with 2 machine guns on it. It looked like something out of straight out of Iraq or Afghanistan. It was pretty neat. I believe last year the Evi Humvee was out there.
So it's not just running up to any vehicle you want, hit triangle and off you go, right?
No. You have to paint like UFS or cost on it. There's a bunch of rules so that you can tell, what team it's on. And just going through and reading the rules about it is really interesting to see how they were trying to, make it fun, but then also make it safe. There's a lot of safety aspects with the vehicles.
Yeah, because I'd say compared to an airsoft gun, a truck is probably a lot more dangerous.
Absolutely.
So for Chaz and Sam, like you guys, returning players, I know Chaz in particular, you've done Copperhead before. I think, Sam, that was your first time at a Copperhead event in particular, if I'm not mistaken. I'm really curious, like, what have your previous experiences either at American Milsim or at Copperhead in particular, how did that sort of inform your prep for this event?
Well, for me, it was I had played last year, and then earlier this year in April, May, I forget now, I played at Iron Horse, and their other premier event. And knowing what I know about the Southwest desert, just insanely hot this time of year, dry as all get out. Dust, a very fine dust that gets into everything, gets into your guns. I think I posted a picture on the Discord of what the
Yeah.
inside of one of my mags looked like after the weekend, and it was, I was shocked. It was disgusting. But knowing all that kind of informs you on how to prep and get ready for it. And I had something happen to me at last year's Copperhead that really changed the way I was going to play at these larger events this year. I didn't full heat casualty out. Late on Saturday last year, I started cramping insanely hard. Like my toes were curling. I could barely
Wow.
hold the gun. I just pulled my dead rag when I knew I was in a house. It was insanely hot. We were the UFS players were trying to take the house, and we were trying to ward them off, and we were actually doing pretty good. But I realized I was not personally doing good, so I pulled myself out of the game, walked out, and several Colorado airsoft players that I know that were down there saw me, and they were like, "Dude, just sit down, call for help." And having a radio connected to our platoon leader, I just said, "Hey, we need an evac, an emergency evac out of here," and I had gotten away from the house just to make sure that the players that were still having fun could continue to have fun instead of me
Yeah.
just crashing in the middle of it. But what that all led me to know is you've got to bring some kind of supplements. You've absolutely, for that event, you've got to bring, it's not enough just to drink water,
Hmm.
because you're sweating all the minerals out of your body, all the potassium, sodium, magnesium, all the things, and just drinking a couple Gatorades isn't enough.
Yeah.
So I turned to a supplement that is a tablet, and you break it up and drop it into the water. And so I put that in my bladder,
Oh,
my
wow. Okay.
that I wear on the back. And it's a product that doesn't stain or make it taste like limes and raspberries forever. So it actually worked out real well. And that really helped me. It helped me at Iron Horse, and it helped me this year. Did not have issues. So
And
And Chaz's whole thing, I bought what he did, and I did it per the recommendation. I think every third water bottle or something, I broke one up and put it in. And I got through with flying colors, actually.
so you
So it was,
benefited from his
oh, I
pain from the
totally
first
learned
time.
Chaz's lesson before it even became a conversation. So it was
thank
great.
So was that your first time playing in that sort of level of heat and dryness, Sam?
No, it was it's kind of funny. I'd been playing up here all summer, and we'd been, in the mid 90s and hot and dry. And then we get down there and it was like, mid to low 80s, still hot and dry. But we actually, the first day, I think we got a big blessing in a lot of cloud cover, and a good amount of shade. And I actually felt great the whole day. Of course, I was also following the Chaz recipe to not heat cat. Um, so I made it through from like a health and nutrition point of view, just with flying colors.
Was there any prep that you did this time that was sort of better or different than last time? Because I know when we spoke last time, you had done like a fair amount of prep for I can't remember the name. Was it
Broken home.
Broken Home? Thank you. Yeah, you'd done a fair amount of prep. Was anything different this time around?
Um, not not fundamentally different on the prep side. So we were well, some things that were different. Chaz and I went with. Did we ever get a full head count, Chaz? I mean, it was close to 30 people.
Oh, I think it might have been between 30 to 35 of players from Colorado.
Oh, wow.
And in our platoon that we know face to face and have played with some before. So basically, instead of a whole squad, which is the goal, would be the goal, is have a whole squad of people. We kind of had a whole platoon.
Each squad basically had up to 14, 15
Yeah.
players in it. So,
Wow.
So that part of that wasn't really prep per se, but I chose the event carefully, and actually I chose the people, then I chose the event, right, based on a kind of a community, like pointing at that event and picking it. We also Chaz and I got in with a group doing military impression, the MARSOC, the early 2000s MARSOC impression. So all of my gear for this was completely different than anything I'd used before. So I did what I always do, is about a month before the event, I say, hey, look, no more gear changes. And then I play, since I play about every weekend, I play every weekend in that kit. So I get used to it.
Mhm.
So same thing. I got very comfortable with all my gear, in a really solid position there. And then just knowing the guys that we were going with, I definitely benefited from experience. And I think last time I mentioned that if the pyro grenades that we carry, if you put them in the wrong spot and then you lean up against the wall or sit on them or have to crawl, they get crushed. So new gear, new spots for grenades. Chaz and I both did the same dangly grenade thing. So we had some right where we could grab them. And that absolutely proved to be the smartest way to have a couple of, like when you need a grenade, a lot of times you need it right then. And I think I counted my rings when we were done, and I had pulled 10 grenades off that spot through the whole event. And I think I used a total of probably 15. So there were a few times when that spot was empty, I'd have to go digging around for them.
Just throwing away money. Just throwing away money.
It's a special event. You just don't think about it. We have a local vendor that we're all really good friends with, he was in another platoon.
He was also
squad.
there.
Yeah, also there. We all just bought a box of grenades. So a box of grenades is it's 25 grenades, $175, and you just don't think about it.
Yeah.
Don't.
So Nick, you were rolling with teammates you were mentioning before. You had met up with it. Did you have I'm assuming you didn't have a platoon size of teammates, but what was your situation like?
No, we did not have a platoon size of teammates. But had I had a platoon size of guys I knew, I feel like UFS would have won a bit harder. But no, I'm on a team of 6 other guys. A couple of them couldn't be there, so it ended up going down to me and 4 others. And our squad, actually 6 guys were in a team, and they were joining with ours. And then there's 2 other guys who were together. And this group of 6, they messaged us saying that we had to drop out. So they dropped out before the event and had to sell all their tickets. And then the other 2 just never showed. So it ended up just being a squad of 5 guys, my friend Brandon being the squad leader. And it was just us. We were Alpha 6 or Alpha 5, I believe. And it was just 5 guys that we all knew each other. So we were trying to get work done, but a lot of the time we just got outgunned going up against a full-size squad.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what was that like? So I know you were saying you were at UFS. I know Sam, Chaz, you guys were on COS, so opposite teams. Despite that, how does that start off? So you show up, you get all your orders, and then you get assigned to a squad that has not enough people in it. Is that roughly how that day started off for you guys?
Well, it starts out months ahead of time. I don't know how many different iterations, at least on the cost side. And that's, I've never played UFS, but from the cost perspective, it's been, for the last 3 games, it's been the same commander, a guy named Virus, who we lovingly referred to as the neck stomper.
Okay.
It's just something he said at the first cost game, and it just kind of stuck with us. Anyhow, great guy, but he starts putting out and pushing out rosters. As people are signing up, he's pushing out these rosters. And it's in those early roster releases that you see, it's like, oh, well, Wayne is got stuff over here in a totally different platoon. He's with us because there's, just administration, somebody didn't sign up right with the right name or this or that. And so I believe Virus uses those early rosters to help correct those issues and get people, because you want to play with your friends.
Yeah, totally.
So there's a lot of organization that goes on from the cost side. I'm not sure what happens on the UFS side.
Yeah, what was it like for you, Nick?
For UFS, it was pretty much the same. Our commander, Rich Gully, he sent out a ton of emails, updates. It was almost weekly at one point, of just updating the roster and making sure that everyone got into the squads they needed to. One thing that we had worried about but didn't actually become an issue with the roster is whether or not we had to sign up as the roles that we had intended on playing as a support gunner or as a heavy weapons specialist. At the end of the day, it didn't really matter. All that matters was that everyone was in their squads. So it was a large roster. It seemed kind of that the squads were a bit overstuffed at times, and then they would just get shifted around. But we didn't have any problems with my 5 guys. We had all signed up, in the same team name, and we got put into a squad, and with Brandon, who's the squad lead. So it ended up working out. We weren't missing any ducklings.
Fair enough. So, I mean, let's get into it a little bit. Like, I'm curious about what the gameplay was like. So, just thinking about like key gameplay modes. I know in particular, Sam, we were talking on the Discord. You were mentioning that there's some action. I think it was like a firefight in the market. So, do you want to start us off and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that would be it'd be kind of reverse order. So we let's see, on Saturday, all the streets, at least for I found out this was a cost thing, not a universal thing. I didn't realize it, but they had colors for the streets. So on Saturday, we spent all of our time on Pink Street until we got onto, what was it, Chaz, Red Street, and we pushed all the way to the other team's home base. And then on Sunday, though, was in the market. And I didn't even know like that the market was a thing or something that we would talk about before the event, because I'd never been there. But when I got there, I started hearing everybody talk about, oh, the market's super cool to play in. Oh, the market. And they are not wrong. So Pink Street was on the top of the map, the north side of the map and so on Sunday they flipped us. Basically, the market's down on the bottom, and it's like yellow street, blue street, or something like that, and green. Yeah. And so our first orders on Sunday were push into the market and, take control of the market. And we did. And it's definitely, in my opinion, the funnest part of the map. There's 2 stories, but you kind of have to work to get on the second story. It's like a bit of a roof with a couple of rooms up there. Lots of courtyards separated by brick walls, like, maybe about head height, maybe not Chaz head height, but Sam head height. Phil would have to hop a pretty
definitely.
good bit. Yeah.
Phil's not seeing the top of the wall.
Clean 2 feet above my head.
And a lot of nearby houses. So UFS got in all the houses nearby coming from their side, and we got in the market. And we just spent the whole day fighting there. And sometimes we were doing great, and other times we were getting our faces smashed in, or we'd lose the game of grenade toss a few times. I died from grenade, I think, more times on Sunday than I died from BBs, if I'm thinking about it right. So it was like a grenade fest in there.
So Phil, just to set the stage, Plias Training Center, I believe, is a failed. You've got all these ranch style houses surrounding on these streets, and they're Hispanic named streets, and so that's why cost at least just goes over those streets with a highlighter saying, okay, that's now Pink Street, that's Blue Street, that's Red Street, and so all these houses, were separated by anywhere from 100 to 150 feet, with all this just natural scrub and brush. And it seemed to me like everything has a thorn on it that's about 3 inches long out there. And then there's the market way down at the south end of town, of this town. And I believe that was probably the village center. I don't know what this thing originally was supposed to be, but at a certain point, you're only 15 miles from the Mexican border, and 20 miles directly south, 15 at the southeast. And so it's pretty far south and out there. But it's this failed living arrangement that they were starting to build, this subdivision that they were putting out there for God only knows what reasons, because there is nothing else around there, like nothing. So that's just a little back history in it.
Totally. So almost like a ghost town kind of deal. So were you all eventually fighting down there? Like Nick, were you down in the market too at some point?
Yes. So Saturday, some of my guys went to the market. I had to just take a break because it was so hot and I was not expecting to be sweating that much. But Sunday, we ended up going as our full size squad, and just a huge element Sunday was just fighting over the market because it's our last day. We were doing pretty good on objectives from what it seemed, so we just ended up rolling with another platoon and hitting the market pretty much all day on Sunday. And that was pretty fun, just trying to push house to house to house to eventually get to the market. And that market looks almost like something out of combat footage that you would see in like Iraq or Afghanistan with the mud kind of brick walls. Obviously, the houses are kind of like southwestern American suburbia, but it was just crazy going from these tight corridors and tight courtyards to these shacks and all between and hopping over walls. It was a lot of fun. And a grenade flies over the wall, blows up in the air, and you have no idea where it came from. You have no idea if it's friendly or not. And I think that's what made it a lot of fun, was just how chaotic it was.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that you mentioned that, because before we were recording this, I was watching a video clip of Copperhead 7 with a bunch of guys standing outside a building talking about like, oh, we're going to go inside, clear the room or whatever. And as they're doing that, a grenade just comes like just over the wall. And like 5 or 6 of the guys are like, yeah, I'm hit. And I was like, okay, all right. And they're like, where did it come from? Nobody knows. Over the wall, I guess. Like, it's crazy.
Could have come from the rooftop, because we as a group decided to build and buy a ladder that we could get up on rooftops. And in our squad, he's a current U.S. Marine, 20-year-old Marine. This guy's like in shape like nobody else was out there. And he's strapped on his back. I don't know how heavy that thing was, Sam. I tried to drag him one time when he got shot, and I couldn't do it by myself. I think it was either you that helped me or somebody else, but that thing was heavy. And he just put it on his back. He built these straps to put around it. He played the entire game using a pistol and a placard full of extended mags, Glock mags.
His main weapon was a ladder.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
And
he was our medic.
Yeah,
right. So really, if you think about it, if you're doing your job right as medic, you're not exposing yourself to enemy fire. You don't. I mean, the pistol stays out of your way. Mm-hmm. He did a killer job as medic. He mediced me. I don't. I can't even count the number of times that I'd yell medic and he'd just show up out of the nowhere, medic me, and then disappear again. He was awesome.
I think his ladder also helped him in one particular case. You weren't with us, Sam, but it was Wayne and the guys from Grand Junction, Westcom, that I had, and we were out in that really tall grass, just kind of west of that CP2. This stuff was insanely tall. The other thing that was interesting about this year's Copperhead was that the monsoon season really, really dumped a lot of rain in that area. And so the entire area was very green, as opposed to the year before. It was just like, seafoam greens and brown. But mm-hmm. This year it was deep greens and very brown, or very green, very tall grass in some areas. And so at one point I got shot, and Cesius, our medic and ladder guy, comes over to me to medic me, and I see a UFS player pop up out of the grass, and he's just looking around, and I've got my dead rag on my head. But I think that ladder changed his profile, that he did not hit.
He didn't look like
Cesius had his back to him, and the guy was looking right at me. And I just slowly, as he's wrapping this long, I mean, how long are those bandages?
4 feet. Yeah.
They have to be 4 feet. So it takes some time to put a 4-foot ace bandage around your arm. And I'm like, go, Cesius, go, go, go. And I'm just slowly raising my rifle and just training it on this guy that could possibly shoot him. And as soon as he goes you're done. I go, thump, 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 and I shoot the guy.
That's
And he
awesome.
has no idea how or where I got medicked from, because
It's pretty funny.
the profile on his back is just this big square thing. And, if he got hit in the ladder, he has to take that as a hit.
Can you
So-
imagine he listens to this podcast and he's like, so that's what that was. Can you imagine? Like that'd
Yeah.
be too good.
It was
So-
pretty funny.
Having our guys be able to get up on roofs, and we got our grenadier up on the roof, and he took out some vehicles that way. But also you can see for forever because the houses are so far apart.
Mhm.
So they could tell our platoon leader exactly what was going on in front of us. And so we'd send, we sent Chaz and some guys went out on a big flank out in the middle of nowhere. And some of our other squads went out on flanks out just kind of away from the houses into the fields, because we could tell UFS was trying to flank us that way. So we matched essentially what they were trying to do.
That's awesome. And I guess I know you guys were doing the Marsoc woodline camo, so that probably worked to your advantage as well, given the more luscious green space. Nick, I was wondering about you. So where this was your first American Milsim, one of the questions I like to ask in situations like this is, from your perspective, like, what was the worst thing that happened for you for that entire weekend? And then what was the best thing about this being your first American Milsim?
I think the worst thing, barring any kind of safety issues that I had witnessed, as there was a couple people who got hurt on UFS, was probably on Saturday, is since our squad was so under strength, a lot of what we were being asked to do kind of on that north side of the map, we just didn't have the manpower to do it. Now, we definitely had tried, and we were definitely good on the clearing houses part, but when it came to just a big out in the brush firefight of squads on platoon-sized engagements, is just we were lacking the manpower in the areas where we were being asked to do a lot of work. And that only got worse throughout the day, as it seemed like, from our perspective, a lot of the UFS guys were just going to the market just to go to the market. Mm-hmm. Now, definitely, I can see why, because it was absolutely a blast on Sunday to play in the market, but it ended up kind of not ruining the experience, but definitely souring it a little bit. But once Sunday rolled around, of being able to fight against some vehicles, being able to fight with our vehicles, fight in the market, get some really good, intense CQB, which is something that me and my guys, we all just pour over all kinds of CQB stuff. That was just really brought that event to the next level, was how particularly chaotic and violent the clearing of those houses got. Was absolutely a blast of just moving house to house to house, and that we had an hour-long engagement, it seemed like, trying to take over these two houses right before we got to the market. And we have a whole bunch of footage of just us trying to throw smoke, throw grenades, suppress the windows, and rush these houses, and dying multiple times. But that seemed to that really made the event a lot more enjoyable in the end.
What's your best story from Copperhead?
Okay. Probably this one might touch on a further question that you have later about celebrities, but we're in the market. We had hopped over a wall, and there was a cost guy in one of the second floor kind of rooms. It's basically just the top of the stairs or the ladder. There's a small room, and he was just sitting in there. And I'm plinking at him, and I'm shooting into the wind, and he's shooting at me. I can't really hit him. He has effective fire. And I'm sitting on this corner, and all of a sudden, this guy, this big, tall dude, like massive arms, comes up. He's got the ML36 grenade launcher. He's like, hey, watch this. And he fires the tag-in round, and it goes straight into the window, blows up. And I look over, and this guy's Travis Haley just standing right next to me. Awesome. And it's like, oh, wow. I didn't know you were coming, but that was pretty awesome, man.
I can imagine that, like, I don't know if you've seen the trailer for Space Marine 2, the video game, where like the Space Marines land and all the Imperial Guardians are like, oh my God, they're here. Thank God, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of a moment like that, because I remember when I first got into airsoft, and also firearms in general, was watching a lot of the Travis Haley, Chris Costa, Magpul Art of the Dynamic Carbine or Art of the Dynamic Handgun, and just watching a lot of that and kind of gleaning a lot of information on how to use obviously firearms in those videos, but use replicas in airsoft. And it was kind of this just cultural touchstone for a lot of people my age in the airsoft community is watching those videos. So it was kind of cool to be like, all right, man, I'm slinging BBs with Travis Haley. This is pretty cool.
Cool.
It's cool.
What about you guys? Like, I know you mentioned the market, but like, what's your? I think maybe Sam, like, starting with you, like, what's your memory, like the best thing that you can take from the weekend, aside from hanging out with Chaz all weekend?
Of course.
Was that really the best thing though?
No,
Chaz,
it wasn't.
It turns out Chaz and I very often partner together really, really well because we're kind of, in a lot of ways, we're like-minded. From like an airsoft, like tactics and on the ground stuff. I had a lot of amazing little moments, nothing really what I'd call super reportable. We mentioned the UFS that you guys kind of didn't have enough force to do stuff. We never lacked for force. Like when our platoon leaders sent us off somewhere, we had so many guys who were very like-minded, and we had all very much beforehand. And kind of the way our squad leader was, he's like, look, we're following orders. We're not wandering off. We're staying with the group. We all had battle buddies. I was battle buddy with my son, who was the most wandery of us, but he was very often still with us.
Are you sure about that? Nelson is pretty wandery too.
Oh yeah, I guess Nelson just Casper. Yeah, that guy
Jack
disappeared.
and Nelson together would have been like in Arizona.
Yeah, that's true. But so I'd seen the UFS way on an event that didn't go great. We talked about that last time. And then seeing how COS does it, I wouldn't say it's fundamentally different, but I think we got in with a good group of people and a really good platoon leader, really good squad leader. And I actually, this time, I said I was going to do it last time, so I did it. I ran dual radios without really asking permission. Not that I, strictly speaking, had to, but I ran the platoon comms as well as our squad comms. Our platoon leader was just amazing.
His name is Squishy, by the way.
Yeah, Squishy is his name, and he checked in on every squad very often. Every squad always had an active order that they were following. Nothing like crazy specific. Another super fun thing for me is we had enough force in our squad that we'd be like coming back from home base and head out of the field, and then there'd just be some tan dudes that just show up in the middle of like our controlled territory. And so we'd call it in before we took any action on them. We'd call it in, which is totally the opposite of the way a lot of times you engage then think, right?
Yeah, really.
And we would call it in instantly, and almost every time we'd call it in, Squishy's response, his command to us was handle it. And the most amazing thing is we would. Right? We wouldn't like try to go get him and then just get smashed and have to go back to FOB again and try again. We would actually rectify the situation, call back that we'd handled it, and then he'd be like, okay, now I need you to come up to where we are and come protect the left side, or something like that. That whole experience of effective leadership, effective communication, and enough strength of force that we could actually handle kind of minor situations. I think, and Chaz can check me on it, I think almost every like set of orders our squad got, we executed successfully. Like maybe one, like eventually the market just got so nasty that nobody could hold that. But we were very, very effective as a team.
Yeah, every time Squishy sent us out to do something, we did it. We took the building, and of course UFS put up a heck of a fight. I forget the building number, but it was right next to CP2. CP meaning control point. You have to put it's a pole. It has your flag or the UFS flag on it, and you have to raise it or lower it, to take control of it and start gaining points. And God only knows how they calculate points for that. But these are things, these are objectives that have to be taken, and they're continuously fought over. The funny thing is that I think Nick and Sam and I and I absolutely certain, because after talking to Nick, we were all slinging BBs. I mean, Sam and I weren't slinging BBs at each other, but Nick and Sam, we were all slinging BBs, and in the same area at the same time on Saturday, after talking to Nick about where he was and what he was doing. So we were all kind of in the same area fighting for that second control point, which was out in the middle of a field right next to some super tall green grass, which
could hide a lot of people.
Exactly. There were a ton of UFS in there. And what turned out to be the most fun thing I did on Saturday was, and this was very counter to what we had all agreed to do, but at one point, Squishy, I came back from the aid station, taking one bandit off, and coming back into the fight again. And I told him that out in the scrub brush, it's more effective to be ones and twos and single smaller units, as opposed to a massive squad of 15 dudes just marching through the field, because one guy with a saw hidden out in the scrub could easily wipe out 5 or 6 guys immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, well, then grab somebody else and get out there, just because he's like, I can see tan guys sweeping far north. And they were going to flank us. And so I yelled over to our one of our snipers in our squad, and I was like, let's go. Let's just you and me. Let's go out there and just wreck these guys. And I go running out, and Squishy had pulled the sniper back from me, and I had no idea because because Sebastian didn't tell me. He didn't say anything. So I'm just like, I run past these other cosplayers that were, trading BBs with these guys, fairly close into the buildings and this control point. But I just go bolting out there. And then I turn around. I'm like, where's Bashy? Where'd he go? And I was like, okay, I'm on my own now. And so I just did the lone wolf thing, which is very not my style.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather work with people and be in communications. And so I got down and I crawled probably, I don't know, hundreds of feet, just on all fours, on 3, holding the rifle up and just crawling from bush to bush to bush. And I finally see these guys sweeping in from the north. They finally made their turn, going from west to the east, and turned and start heading south from the north side of the field. So there was nobody behind them, and they were just moving brush to brush, standing up. And in their tan uniforms, they kind of stood out. So I thought, I'm pretty well hidden. They have no clue I'm here. I can see them. And immediately took out one guy as he got really close. And I just let them walk to me, and I would move a little bit, shoot, take one guy out, move again, and wait. Because, and I was running my Kythera, which is a fairly quiet gun, HPA powered. But I took out 4 dudes in this squad, and basically effectively, and I don't think it was a full size squad, but effectively stopped them from doing what their plans were. And they would have swept in, taken that side, and then taken that control point away from us. And every time and then I would start crawling over, because each player was given a card at the beginning of the game, and that's your kill card.
Right.
And so when you're searched, or you had intel on you. I've never had intel in the 3 games I've played, and I've only ever searched one guy, and he gave me up his intel packet, which is, like, oh, cool, finally found something. But I've gotten some cards from players, and it's just kind of, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
But of course you have to interact with these people. And it's, I had this conversation with this guy as I'm, he's like, oh man, is that your gun? And he's talking to me about my gun. And the whole time I'm still scanning and looking for other players.
Yeah, like, he's out of the game, but you're still playing.
Yeah, he's not going to get medicked, and I'm hoping that his medic, will come and I can take that guy out too, because the medic is very, very valuable, player on the field. But that was probably one of my best moments, just playing lone wolf stuff. But my knees and left arm are still sore to this day from all that crawling around out there. It was a ton.
You gotta hit the gym. It's funny what you say about the lone wolf, because I was reading the I don't know what the actual technical name is. I'm just going to call it the gameplay rules of a milsim in Europe, actually, where lone wolf is so discouraged that they encourage you to report players who are playing lone wolf. And if that happens multiple times, you can be banned from their events, because they're like, under no circumstance should anybody be by themselves. And I think it has to do in their events with the size of the play area that they're in, because they're concerned that people will get like lost and stuff like that, which is legit. But I think it's a pretty extreme reaction to the other thing being like, no, you should never be by yourself kind of deal. So, and they mean like, you actively going by yourself, not, oh, my teammate got shot and now I'm by myself, what do I do? But like, no, screw you guys, I'm going to do my own thing. It's like completely forbidden.
Sure.
But as we talk about this too, like one of the things that I'm conscious of whenever I talk to people about events, or I look at, footage online or what have you, you're really getting the highlight reel stuff, like the best moments. And that's what's fun to talk about. But there's a lot of stuff in there that I think doesn't make the highlight reel, but actually makes up a huge portion of the overall experience, right? So, I mean, we've talked about, okay, well, you're at your aid station, all the stuff that you're not going to talk about. But what are some of the things from your point of view, and I think maybe we'll start with Nick, that really made up a big portion of your weekend, the event for you, but you might actually not expect to see in a highlight reel, but if you attend, if someone is listening to you talk, that's the kind of thing they should expect?
A lot of the time that you spend, at least for AMS events, in my experience, is there's obviously a lot of walking back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I think any milsim's going to have a lot of walking, whether or not you're walking with a ruck or just walking back to respawn, a ton of walking. So that's the big thing, is having good footwear. But also you'll spend a lot of time, not necessarily in the action, but trying to figure out where the action is. And also a lot of time, I guess, kind of communicating. Good comms is a really important thing, is making sure that your comms is working, because we had some issues with that. And we had one guy that we just didn't know where he was for a while. It turned out he was dead most of the time, or stuck in a house, so his radio was blocked by the house. But there's so many small things that can go wrong at a big event like this. Also, I guess guns going down. We had a lot, at least between the five of us, we had almost all of our guns go down at one point. Some of them were fixed, some of them just couldn't work at all. So that was definitely a point of stress before we had even started the event, is that we were running out of spare guns to use.
That's that New Mexico sand getting into your gearbox.
But yeah, I don't know if anyone else had seen this, especially with AEGs, but if there had been a FPS change going from a lower elevation to a higher one, because before we had left, we had chronoed all of our guns, and 3 of our guns just weren't chronoing. They were like 10 to 20 FPS over the limit once we had gotten from Texas to New Mexico. So I have no idea what had caused that. That's
strange.
It possibly could just be the chrono.
Used to it going the other way. Normally when you lose altitude, you gain FPS.
Yeah, they have more air.
Weird.
So yeah, definitely that's something to be prepared for, is bring backups for your backups, and switch to HPA so you can just change your air.
Yeah.
You don't have to do field disassembly of your AEG in a camp chair, which I had to do.
Not recommended. Not recommended.
Not recommended at all.
I think we were pretty good on that front, right, Sam? As far as
mine and my son's gear. Mine and my son's gear was 100%. I don't remember anybody talking about a gun going down.
I had one. So I brought 3 guns, 2 HPA rifles and an AEG, and I was planning on using the AEG because, for the night game, because it's just so much lighter. Just take the backpack with the air tank off, and allow some air to actually hit my wet shirt at that point. And I couldn't use it, all because I completely forgot the sling attachment points. I mean, the gun worked perfectly.
Oh, no.
But I could not attach a sling to it unless I totally disassembled my sling and sat there and re-rigged. And even then it would have just hung off the back of the stock. That would have been the only place I could have attached it to. And it was like, this is pointless. So I took out the Mark 18 HPA, and that actually was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun for the night game.
Do you guys, and you just mentioned something that sort of prompted something about like your wet shirt. Do you pack a lot of like change of clothing that you use during the day? Like, are you changing your socks or anything like that?
Not for
Changing
me.
socks, for sure.
No.
I change socks every single day just because I learned my lesson the hard way from Milsom West was if you do not change your socks, you're going to get blisters and your feet are going to get disgusting. So I had definitely changed my socks. But after the games, I would change out of the BDU and just to some shorts and a t-shirt. And that was nice to be able to wear, civilian shoes and then just normal clothes to go to Lordsburg to go grab a bite to eat or just hang around camp, especially since it was a bit warm out. It was nice to get the cool air and not have to, wear BDU pants.
I totally forgot to bring socks.
So what, you were just rocking flip-flops the whole weekend?
No,
bare feet.
I had brought some short crew socks, the short ones, but for airsoft, I normally, like a long, tall sock just to protect the lower part of my shins. But apparently I forgot to pack those. And so I just had crew socks the whole weekend running around out there. You gotta, packing it's a hard thing. Yeah. I know Nick had posted a bunch of pictures of like, okay, here's all my gear assembled. And I had done the same thing. And it's the silly things like the quick adapters that go onto the gun to be able to attach a sling to your gun, or socks, or all those small things. It just
my son
wells up on you.
My son brought 2 t-shirts for a 4-day trip. and he wears the t-shirt under his combat shirt. So the t-shirts just get wrecked. So for the drive home, he was wearing one of my t-shirts. So which was fine. It was just like, I was like, he put on the same t-shirt I'd seen him in like every day. And I was like, dude, didn't you sweat like 5 gallons through that? And he goes, yeah, it'll be fine. I was like, not sitting next to me in the car, it won't.
Yeah, really, eh?
So I threw him one of mine.
It's so funny how conditions are so different, just because I think about us and like what we do here. Like, it's so humid, it's so moist here. Like, you can't go anywhere like hiking or camping or whatever in the woods here without having to bring multiple pairs of everything just to stay dry, right? Whereas I guess if you're in the desert, probably not as big of a concern, right?
It's the one thing I noticed, Phil, that last video you guys posted of you rocking the AK, how much clothing you guys were wearing up there. It's got to be so much cooler up there than what we're used to down here, and especially then 15 miles from the Mexican border. I was completely soaked. I had a combat shirt on, nothing under that. My RRV chest rig, my backpack for the tank, and a combat pants and some short socks, which actually turned out to be very nice because I got a breeze up there. Dude, who knew? But holy cow, we were all soaked through.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I was wet the whole day, like to the point at the end of the first day. So I historically not a plate carrier guy, but I was running a plate carrier for this event. Got back to the hotel at night, getting ready to take a shower, got my shirt off, and I have like red, like minor rash in the shape of a plate carrier on me because I'd sweat so much, and then it wiggled. And so basically I rubbed myself a bit of a rash. I mean, it was totally fine. It dissipated, after the event, but I was like, oh geez, is this headed towards awful or what? But yeah, I mean, I was And I think it's a testament to how good of a job we all did with hydration that we stayed that wet the whole day. Because if you're screwing up, you'll go dry, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a hint. And definitely like salt rings like you've never seen before, because I followed the Chaz patented mineral hydration strategy.
Yeah,
Gotta
totally.
do it. Gotta do it.
Listen.
I was actually really proud. None of my guns broke. About a month before the event, every single one of my AEGs went down, every single one. And so I spent like a whole, like between weekends fixing them all. And you're always hopeful that all goes okay, and had no issues. So I was actually pretty pleased with that.
Awesome. So listen, last question, and I kind of want to change gears a little bit. And I think this is coming for some of the questions I had with some people on Discord and some of the conversations we've had as well. Like you've got, and Nick, you talked about it briefly just earlier. Like you've got some pretty well-known, dare I say it, celebrities hitting these kinds of events, like these larger milsim events, and not just in the United States, but elsewhere in the world as well. Guys like Travis Haley, Novrich, Milspec Mojo, Airsoft Alphonse, who I think those three in particular were at Copperhead, but just to name a couple. And obviously, events like that are going to look to attract people like that because it helps attract other players, right? If you know that Travis Haley is coming to this game and you are a big fan, you're going to try and go to that game too and bump elbows or whatever, right? So that makes sense. And actually, if you look up Copperhead 7 on YouTube and that's all you search, one of the first video is like room clearing with Travis Haley. And it's only room clearing with Travis Haley in name because he's in that like 5-minute video for like 3 seconds, but that's beside the point. I guess my question is, what is it like playing with these guys in your experience at these games? Like, are they either playing against them or for them or whatever? Like, are they looking to, in your experience, collaborate, play the objectives, etc.? Are they looking to do their own thing? Like, are they? And one of the questions that I have too, as a content creator, let's call it, are they rolling with people who are just documenting what they're doing? Like, what was that experience like?
I don't know who all was playing on COS, if there was any kind of big names, but it seemed like most of the big names in Airsoft on YouTube were on UFS. So I remember running into Alphonse on the back of a technical, didn't really roll with him much. But our squad and Jet, the Desert Fox, our squads did a lot of work on Sunday assaulting the market. And I don't know this for sure, but I believe Jet probably got asked by AMS to help roll with some of the Haley strategic partner guys. Now, most of them are former military, but Airsoft for some of the employees is a new thing. Mm-hmm. And I had heard that a lot of the Haley strategic employees come to Copperhead now after coming last year as kind of a office retreat, since I believe they're based in California. But so Travis was there, and then a bunch of his employees were there, and they were just rolling around with us. Some of them, I don't know if they kind of got the whole Airsoft thing. It was fun for them, but they hadn't. I don't think they had the same mindset as most players. But Jet, for sure, he was very much a team player and very much trying to coordinate a lot of the just disparate guys on the back of buildings. And it's like, all right, you 10 guys, roll out in the street and suppress that window over there while these guys would go and assault. And so my squad and Jet and some of his guys who were doing a Marine Corps, like early 2000s, just Marine grunt impression, we were rolling and trying to assault a lot of these buildings. So working with Jet was pretty good. He's definitely open to collaboration and teamwork. Travis Haley I only saw twice, so I couldn't say what he was doing for most of the event. The only thing I saw him doing was killing cost guys with a 40 millimeter in windows. So that was pretty good. I'd be curious to see, Alphonse and Jet, their footage, and just see what the event was like as they captured it. But I don't have any complaints really to say how they were doing.
Oh, for sure. And I'm not looking for complaints. I'm just really curious because one of the things I was saying to Chaz that's interesting, for example, about Newfoundland in particular, is that a lot of celebrities come here to hang out because nobody wants to talk to them. Like they just come here and it's just like, do whatever, man. And some people don't know who they are. And they just do the thing. I met Jason Momoa downtown St. John's. He asked me for directions. That was it. He was like, "Hey, where's this collectible store?" And I'm like, "It's down the road." Cool, man. Mahalo. See you later. Like that was it. Right. And so that's the relationship that I see a lot with celebrities here. But like I can only imagine that at these larger events, you have people who might like flock to those people, or I'm not really sure. So I'm just curious about it. That's really the question.
That happens, and that's also, I think, why the event organizers want these people to come, because it and I'm not sure how this has happened over the last couple of years, but it seems like the cost tickets for AMS, the cost tickets sell out first.
Really? Okay.
And so that leaves a lot of, so then they possibly ask Jet, the Desert Fox, and his wife Leah and other players to come and play on UFS to fill that out. And if that attracts other players that want to play with them, so be it. And it helps even out the numbers. I've played against Jet at one point. He played at one game out here in Colorado a couple of years ago that we all went to. I took a selfie with him. He was very nice. But and much like what Nick was saying, he's just very effective at what he does. And he's played a ton of airsoft. Didn't see anyone else though playing any of these stars or celebrities, if you want to call them that, playing on cost at all.
It's because they don't like Woodland, apparently. It's all multicam all the time. Let's go.
All multicam.
I think the cost crew is a very committed crew. Like Chaz said, they sell out first almost every time. This is my first time playing cost. I'd played UFS before, but I still recognized a lot of the cost players, like as the same faces I'd seen before. I don't know any names, but it's same faces I'd seen before. So I think they've got a pretty large core that maybe they come to every event, maybe they just come to the big events. I don't know.
Same. I've noticed some of the same cost players playing, a game after game. I think that's just what you do once you get into the, and then if you look into the storyline behind it, I'm not sure exactly if that drives people away from cost or towards cost. But basically cost is a separation from the United States. It's a split. Confederation of the Southern Territories, I think is what it's called. And so maybe that doesn't sit well with some people, and that's why they get attracted towards UFS, but who knows?
Chaz and I are not in it for the lore.
Yeah, clearly.
I like M81.
Back to the celebrity thing. So I'll state for the record of the podcast, super important. I actively saw zero cheating, zero things that made me upset. But our squad leader, whose job is to look and see things and is up on roofs, I heard him call in. They call them war crimes when you see things that are violations of the rules. He called in. I don't know, maybe half a dozen, Chaz, war crimes. Yeah. The most egregious one is kind of one it's a rough one. If they call for an injury, which they call a corpsman, everybody's supposed to stop exactly where they are. Well,
don't advance, don't reload, don't shoot, do anything tactical.
Don't do anything.
Do you mean like a real injury?
Yes,
like a real injury. Okay. And we had several, like we said earlier,
casualties, falling, tripping. There were snakes out there too.
Yeah, snakes.
I don't think anyone got bit.
But when they call that, you're supposed to stop. Well, several times, and it's like one of those things. Like, okay, well, we would all stop, but we're all on one faction's comms, so that call goes out. It can move like lightning through green. But if UFS doesn't know, well, they're going to keep trying, right? Mm-hmm. And so those were a lot of the war crimes we called in. Our only engagement with a celebrity was we got called over to take care of a control point, and essentially we ended up heading towards some houses. And was it Alphonse, Airsoft
Yeah.
Alphonse, was
Yeah.
in the building. I wasn't close enough to engage with it. Our squad had spread out because we weren't quite sure what we were headed into. So we kind of spread out. Our squad leader, saw him executing a war crime, a different kind of war crime, basically shooting an LMG out of a building. When you shoot LMGs, because they're higher energy, and just rate of fire, you're supposed to poke the barrel out the window. It's supposed to be physically sticking out the window
or the doorway.
So if somebody is like sneaking up sideways on the building, they don't just walk right in front of where you're shooting an LMG and eat it. And so our squad leader, said he was in the back of the building, shooting across, buried in the building and shooting out the window. And so he died from the LMG, our squad leader did. And he walked up to the window and said, "Hey," and I think that's probably when he figured out who it was. "Hey, you're not supposed to shoot an LMG." And he called that one in too. What I did witness with the Alphonse thing is there were a bunch of dead tan guys, and it looked like basically an Alphonse cruise, and I don't actually know any of this, is just pure speculation, was sent on a mission to take a control point, and they and the adjacent buildings, they got in the adjacent buildings. I absolutely saw some guys, once they were all dead, they all just kind of looked at each other and just got up and walked away. And that's not per the rules. You're supposed to stay where you are dead for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
To allow it to be searched. And also it kind of real consequence of dying, right? It's annoying having sat out the 5 minutes many times over the weekend. Yeah. It's really annoying to sit there. And so you think on your sins and try not to die next time.
Yeah.
And so what that looked like to me was they went on that mission and they were in it for the footage.
Yeah.
Is the feel that I got from my, and I just barely saw this, and I'm putting together pieces and making up crap the way I want it to be in my head. So we should to be balanced on my perspective, but that's what it looked like to me. So that was I think, Chaz, that was our only celebrity encounter.
I took a shot at Alphonse. I mean, I had the opportunity to actually shoot him because he in that house. And if you watch his video, which he just released, I believe yesterday, I think I appear in the video. He takes a shot at two dudes, and it was the building that we were assaulting towards, and he was in. And eventually, it wasn't exactly our squad, but it was another cost element that we hooked up with that was also tasked with taking that control point and those houses around it. And he just happened to be in it. And as we were approaching, I see this gunner just open this door and just stand there and look out. And we were all in the brush, and so pretty well hidden. But I raised my rifle up, and he was within range. I could have shot Alphonse, but instead I decide my left thumb lands perfectly on my light for my stream light, and I turned that on, which all that did was cue him in, and he immediately turns towards the light and starts firing that saw at me and totally suppressing me. Exactly. He had no idea I was there in the brush, and I was like, "Hey, I'm over here." I screwed that one up. It would have been fun to have shot a celebrity.
So all told, Nick, are you going back or what?
Definitely to AMS. I think this one's taught us a lot of lessons for just AMS events in general. It's taught me a lot. I don't know about Copperhead immediately because there's a lot of other events on our list, but I definitely had fun. Logistically, it's a bit challenging for me, but yeah, I'd probably go back in a year or two after hitting the rounds on a couple other different AOs.
Once you get some M81 and you can roll with the big dogs, right?
Yeah, what was that? 3-color desert or
we wear flat tan, but I do have a DCU like Delta Mogadishu kit going.
Yeah,
nice.
We're talking about doing that, so maybe we can hook up.
Get one of those Black Hawk Down like like those old style flak vests with the big old American flag on the front.
Oh
And
yeah,
everything
no,
else. So,
I'm working on it. I got stuff on eBay on order right now as we speak.
I mean, legit, that's why I wore a ProTech helmet for years. I'm like, hey, if it's good enough for the Delta guys in Mogadishu in 1990 something, it's good enough for me for airsoft. And it turns out that wearing a real helmet has benefits when you're playing in a place that has like rebar coming down and like old decrepit concrete, and you're liable to run your head into all kind. Ask me how I know, like good stuff.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
legit.
I've said it before, but there's a reason they don't wear that stuff anymore.
Yes, there's that too, right? But guys, listen, thanks. It was so good to have you. I'm really glad to be able to have this conversation with you, talk about Copperhead and the ups and downs and the highs and the lows. It's really cool to be able to have a Discord where we can have people like yourselves sort of meet each other and connect in, meet space, like in real life. In addition to what we do online, and understanding like you guys are all in America, but like there's when you look at our friends who are in Europe, for example, who live in France or Spain or Germany, like there's an opportunity for them as well to connect. So really cool. I'm very grateful we were able to put this together. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. And guys, if you want to join the Discord, the link is in the description. We'd love to have you. You can talk to these three crazy dudes along with myself and a whole whack of other people. We'd love to have you join. But until then, that's all we got for you. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.